Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pitts. Ukraine War News Update, third part thereof for the 28th of June 2024. I'm going to scoot through probably the European news. I won't be able to do the main body of what I want to do is talk about France, talk about the US debate and the impact on Ukraine. I won't be able to get to that because I've got to shoot off. So this is going to be a super quick one, he says, giving an overly long introduction. So we're going to start with the EU. EU leaders have confirmed Ursula von der Leyen as the head of the European Commission. Good for Ukraine's stability, pro-Ukraine. They've also confirmed former Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa as appointed to the head of the European Council. Don't know too much about him. The Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas received support for the position of head of European diplomacy. She's massively supportive of Ukraine. Her and von der Leyen are good news for Ukraine. Estonian Prime Minister Kallas has confirmed as the next top diplomat replacing Josep Borrell. Euromonitor Press says she is a staunch supporter of Ukraine and is deemed to be an anti-Russian hawk. That's why she was possibly out the running for a NATO Secretary General, as she was sort of rumoured to be in on that possibly. Reaction of Lavrov shows that we're on the right track to end this war. Quote, this is Estonization of European Union, and it is sad, commented Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister for Russia, about rumours of Estonian Prime Minister replacing Josep Borrell. His worst fears are our fastest pace to real peace. Please let it be true, says Yannicka Murillo. That is good news. If Russia are unhappy with Kaja Kallas being Josep Borrell's replacement, that's good news for me. Now, this is a great bit of video. So when Zelensky was in the EU yesterday doing an awful lot of stuff, including signing lots of bilateral security arrangements, he did meet very briefly with Viktor Orban. In fact, it has been clipped, so it looked like he was talking to Orban, and some people claiming this was, really good of Zelensky to be man enough to go and speak to Orban. But actually, Orban comes to speak to him if you look at the full clip, which is here. So it's quite animated, as in a sense, fairly animated, but good news. Good that they are talking. That can only be seen in, I think, a positive light. And I would love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. My goodness, they need to sit in a room for an awful long time is my suggestion. Anyway, European MPs call on Charles Michel to suspend Hungarian presidency of the EU Council. So they have that 6-month rotating presidency of the Council, Viktor Orban and Hungarians. The letter was reportedly signed by 20,000 signatories of EU citizens and published on June the 27th on the German MEP Freund's account on Twitter. So European MPs and others calling for the Hungarians to have their presidency suspended. Ukraine signs a long-term security deal with both Estonia and Lithuania. That's really good news. They are racking up those bilateral security agreements as some kind of a bridge to NATO, sort of like Article 5, but not quite, in terms of getting countries to come to their support if they are indeed invaded. I presume after a negotiation, some kind of peace agreement would be arrived at with Russia. If then Russia come back to take a second bite of the apple, there are sort of a dozen or more countries that would come to Ukraine's aid more formally. I think if Gabrielius Landsbergis, the foreign minister for Lithuania, said if a country hires someone to burn down buildings in another country, that's not a hybrid attack. That's state-sponsored terrorism. This is really important because we often hear the term hybrid warfare. It is warfare. When another country sponsors people to go and burn places down, and I think fire is going to become a major vulnerability of the world going forward, in terms of how easy it is to destroy buildings and anything with a very easy thing to do. You can talk about creating a bomb, right, and setting off a bomb somewhere. That's quite difficult and comes with lots of risks. And you have to have the expertise to do that. Whereas if you have a backpack with some flammable stuff and a lighter, you can set. We've seen this in Russia. We've seen this have an effect around Europe already. I honestly watch out for fires. Poland, Czechia, Germany asked the EU to help cover expenses for hosting refugees from Ukraine. Bloomberg's reported the leaders of 3 states have sent a joint letter obtained by Bloomberg on the topic of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. on the topic to her. They sent a letter asking for, because they have a brunt of the Ukrainian refugees and all the costs associated with them, such as schooling, medical care, etc., etc. Finland plans a law change to seize apartments from Russians for unpaid dues. Approximately 1,000 housing associations are grappling with issues arising from Russian apartment owners failing to pay membership fees for other obligations. This situation may lead to bankruptcy declarations for residential complexes, leaving them without essential services like heating, energy and water. And Bulgaria's pro-Russian president, so Bulgaria is a funny place, it's very supportive of Ukraine in many respects, its military-industrial complex supports it, I think the administration broadly supports it, but the president at the top is pro-Russian, and that Rumen Radev has refused to lead the country's delegation to the NATO summit because the position he has to defend regarding assistance to Ukraine. Quote, the head of the state does not agree with certain provisions of the framework positions adopted by the Council of Ministers concerning the obligations that our country assumes in connection with the war in Ukraine, Radio Liberty writes, citing the president's press service. So that's not good news for Bulgaria there, and indeed for Ukraine. This new structure, so there's a new structure in NATO. NATO will offer a bridge to Ukraine for membership through a new structure. We'll come to that in a second. This new structure, said to Euromaidan Press, should increase the coordination of aid to Ukraine. The Biden administration came up with the idea as a way to give something solid to Kyiv at the summit, even as they maintain the time is not right for Ukraine to join. So there needs to be some plan put in place so that Ukraine know where they're going with regards to Ukraine. The Biden administration, NATO officials came up with the idea to do that. So let's have a look. It's not just that the country is still at war, which could make NATO an active participant in the fighting. President Biden and Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany have said that Ukraine must make important reforms to reduce corruption and improve its democracy and rule of law, publication notes. So called the NATO Security Assistance and Training for Ukraine, or NSATU, NSATU maybe. This new structure is supposed to increase the coordination of all kinds of aid to Ukraine. Over the longer term, American and NATO officials said the move was intended to send a strong signal of allied commitment both to Kyiv and Moscow, which hopes the West will grow tired of supporting the war. Because the mission will be under NATO's auspices, it is designed to function even if Donald Trump, a sharp critic of the alliance and of aid to Ukraine, wins the US presidency in November. So there's a bit of mitigation against political winds changing. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that Warsaw is finalising work on a security agreement with Kyiv. In recent months, Ukraine has made significant progress in strengthening its security capabilities by signing defence agreements now with 16 countries. So I should have added that earlier, but that's 16 countries. Spotify has removed the pages of several Russian artists under EU sanctions, including, a bunch of bands and singers. Indeed, I think it was a runner-up in 2015 to Eurovision Song Contest has been banned. So there are sanctions on those people for moving around Europe, but also in terms of making money from Spotify within Europe, etc. Zero. Okay, then we get on to French stuff here. So, let's just include this one. A man has been arrested with explosives near Paris airport, and it was part of a vast Russian sabotage campaign. 26-year-old Russian Ukrainian was arrested at a hotel near Charles de Gaulle airport on June the 3rd after an accident while making explosives. He was planning to target a hardware store north of Paris as part of a sabotage campaign orchestrated by Moscow. This is very serious, right? And it's a real shame that Le Pen is threatening Macron with not sending troops to Ukraine when Russia are clearly doing nefarious things inside French territory. It's an absolute shocker. Marine Le Pen said that Emmanuel Macron will not be able to send troops to Ukraine because the Prime Minister will hold the purse strings. According to Le Pen's forecast, she will have an absolute majority in the French Parliament, so there's no doubt that the government will be headed for the leader of her list, headed by the leader of her list, Jordan Bardella. So we've got a Guardian article here talking about Le Pen claims far right will win majority and take over some military decisions. This is not good news for Ukraine at all. Really, you don't want a far left or the left coalition, which includes elements of far left who are anti-aid to Ukraine. You don't want the far right. You basically want the centrists, but the centrists are being squeezed out with action, reaction. Squeezes out the middle ground, and who would have thought years ago I'd be such a centrist advocate, but here I am, because this is the safest path forward for both Europe and Ukraine, and indeed that's not going to be the path that France takes, so it's a real shame. I'm going to leave it there because I have lots to do, but thanks for watching. Really appreciate your support. and I will hopefully get back to you with more talk on probably both France and the US later in, well, it'll be tomorrow now because I won't be back until sort of midnight. But just to add to that French stuff, tentative projections by 4 different polling agencies from June the 19th to 26th suggest that RN, Rassemblement National, might gain a massive 200 to 305 of the 577 seats, so possibly a majority, up from 88. The upper limit of the range would give it a majority. Clément Beaune, a left-leaning centrist and former minister under Mr. Macron, urges a tactical vote against the RN under any circumstances. This could mean asking moderate voters to back the NFP. So this is a left-leaning coalition, and that would not necessarily favour Ukraine. It's a bit of a dodgy one. Anyway, that's enough for me. Take care, guys. Speak soon.